Black street girl asks millionaire for milk. I promise I'll pay you when I grow up. What he does is surprising. Sir, please. I just need some milk for my little brother. I promise I'll pay you when I grow up. The steady little voice cut through the night like a knife, causing David Thornton to stop abruptly on the deserted sidewalk. At 45, the businessman had just left another frustrating meeting in the financial district. His technology company was worth $200 million, but he was walking the streets trying to process the numbers that didn't add up. He never imagined that a 6-year-old little girl, standing alone in front of a market, would completely change the course of his existence. The girl was holding a baby wrapped in tattered blankets, her large eyes shining with a determination that contrasted sharply with her desperate situation. She wasn't crying or begging. She was offering a business deal with the seriousness of an executive. What's your name? David asked, crouching down to her height. Destiny, and this is little Malik. She adjusted the baby in her thin arms. Our mom is very sick and can't go out to buy things. David looked around. It was almost midnight. The streets were deserted, and this child was standing there with a baby in her arms. Something about the dignity in her voice touched him in an inexplicable way. They entered the grocery store, which was still open. David had never paid attention to the basic price of things. When the cashier said $3.50 for the milk, he felt ridiculous for not knowing. He added diapers, baby food, fruit. Destiny watched each item being scanned with an expression that seemed to calculate an impossible debt. That's too much, sir. I can't pay for all that. Consider it a long-term investment. David smiled, handing her the bags. Destiny walked with him for 2 blocks until they stopped in front of a dark alley. This is it. Thank you, sir. David Thornton. Thank you, Mr. David. When I grow up, I'll find you and pay you back every penny. She disappeared into the alley with Malik and the groceries. David stood rooted to the sidewalk, something bothering him deeply. Such a small child, alone in the early morning with a baby, speaking politely in contrast to her brutal circumstances. Without thinking twice, he followed her, keeping his distance. Destiny crossed a vacant lot until she reached an overpass where a young woman lay on cardboard, visibly feverish. The scene took his breath away, an entire family living in the open with that 6-year-old girl practically supporting them all. The next morning, David returned with groceries and medicine. I knew you'd come back. Destiny smiled. Mom wants to meet the person who helped us. Grace, the 24-year-old mother, couldn't hide her distrust. She had learned that nothing was free, especially from men in suits. But there was something different about David. Perhaps the respectful way he treated Destiny, keeping his distance and expecting nothing in return. How did you end up here? David asked gently. Grace hesitated. We lost our apartment 3 months ago. The landlord said he was cleaning the building of undesirable tenants. She lowered her eyes. People like us. People like you. Single mothers, black, no steady income, Grace whispered as if it were a painful confession. David felt something cold run up his spine. What about welfare? We tried, but there's always problems with our paperwork. There are always forms missing signatures. Grace hugged Malik tighter. It's like the system is designed to keep us invisible. Over the next few weeks, David established a morning routine at the overpass. Destiny always waited for him with stories about treasure she had found, broken dolls, coins, wet books. She tried to read by herself. Can you read? David asked. A little. Mom taught me before she got sick. David started bringing children's books. Destiny devoured them like food, reading to Malik, even though she knew he was too young to understand. It was brilliant. Intelligence being wasted by the cruelest of circumstances. Mr. David, Destiny said one morning, why do you help us? Everyone else pretends we don't exist. The question hit him like a punch in the stomach. Because you're a real family. You take care of each other. You protect each other. You love each other. I have a lot of money, but I never had that. Then maybe we can be your family, too. David felt something break in his chest. This little girl who promised to pay him for milk when she grew up had just offered him something that $200 million could never buy. But what David didn't know was that someone had been watching these morning visits for weeks. And that person had very specific plans to clean up that area of undesirable elements once and for all. Plans that would jeopardize everything David was beginning to love for the first time in his life. While Destiny told Malik made-up stories about brave princesses, David watched that pure love and wondered how such special people ended up invisible to the world. What he would soon discover would not only change his perception of that family, but of an entire system designed to crush people like them. If this story of a child transforming the life of a millionaire is touching your heart, get ready. Because when David discovers who is really responsible for Destiny's situation, he will use every penny to prove that messing with the wrong family can cost a lot more than money. 3 weeks later, David woke up with a feeling that something was wrong. He arrived at the overpass earlier than usual. But instead of finding Destiny playing with Malik while Grace organized their belongings, he was met with a scene that made his blood run cold. 2 police officers were pouring ice water on the cardboard boxes where the family slept, while a third shouted orders with obvious sadism. Grace held Malik against her chest, soaked and shivering, while Destiny desperately tried to save the books David had given her. "I told you. Bums don't stay in this area," yelled Officer Mitchell, a burly man who clearly relished every second of his abuse of power. "This is private property, and you are breaking the law." "Please, officer," Grace pleaded, her voice breaking with fever. "We just need a few more days to find another place." "A few days?" Mitchell laughed cruelly. "You've had months. Now get these kids and get out of here before I call Child Protective Services to take you apart." David watched Destiny stare at the officer 3 times her size with a courage that broke his heart. "We're not bums," the 6-year-old said. "We're a family and we're taking care of each other." Mitchell crouched down with a malicious grin. "You know what happens to kids who are too smart? They end up far away from their mothers in places where they learn to keep quiet." Grace pulled Destiny back, terror evident in her eyes. David saw a woman who had learned exactly how cruel the system could be to people like her. "Decent people don't live under bridges," Mitchell growled, adjusting his gun belt deliberately. "And children don't grow up here if I can help it." When the officers left, David approached the devastated family. For the first time since he had known her, he saw Destiny truly cry, clutching wet pieces of the books he had given her. Her small voice broken. "They destroyed everything. Mr. David, why?" David crouched down, wiping her tears. "Because some people think they can mistreat those who can't defend themselves." "Mr. David," Grace whispered, still shaking. "This happens twice a week. Always the same officer. He says we're polluting the neighborhood and threatens to separate us. He can do that." Grace looked around nervously. "People like us. The system doesn't work for people like us. He has a badge. We have nothing." David felt something cold and calculating take shape in his mind. "Grace, can I ask you some questions about this officer and how you lost your apartment?" "Why?" "Because I suspect you're not the only victims." That afternoon, David canceled all his meetings. He called Victoria Chun, a lawyer who had taken down 3 police departments for civil rights violations. Then he contacted Marcus Rodriguez, a private investigator specializing in municipal corruption. "It's a well-known pattern," Marcus explained after David reported the situation. "Vulnerable families are systematically evicted from areas marked for gentrification. The trick is to use cops like Mitchell to do the dirty work." "Dirty work for whom?" "Greenfield Development Corporation. They buy land at low prices after the area is cleaned up of undesirable elements." David felt anger rising in his throat. "And what does Mitchell get in return?" "Extra bonuses for every family that voluntarily relocates. We've been able to track 15 families in the last 6 months." While building his case, David continued to visit Grace and the children. Destiny had lost her natural joy. She no longer ran to greet him, just waved timidly from a distance. Mr. David, she said. One afternoon, Mom said we might have to leave town. Why? Because the man in uniform said that if we don't go away, he'll make me and Malik go to different homes far away from Mom. David felt something break inside him. He crouched down to her height. Destiny, do you trust me? Yes. Then believe me when I say that. No one will ever separate you. Never. How can you be sure? David smiled. But there was something dangerous in that smile. Because people like Officer Mitchell are only brave against those they think can't fight back. They've never faced anyone with my resources. Grace approached, listening to the conversation. Mr. David, we don't want you getting into trouble because of us. Grace, I have $200 million and lawyers who make Mitchell look like a playground amateur. The problem isn't me taking him on. It's him picking the wrong family to bully. That night, David was in his office when Victoria called. David, we found something big. Mitchell isn't just evicting families. He's using false records to justify confiscating children and selling them to private adoption agencies. How many children? 12 in the last 2 years. All from vulnerable Black or Latino families. David clenched his fists. This wasn't just about illegal evictions. It was about deliberately separating families to profit from human suffering. Victoria, how long do we need to build a federal case with your resources? 2 weeks. And to secure immediate protection for Grace and the children. I can arrange that tomorrow. David looked out the window toward the overpass where his new family slept on wet cardboard. In 2 weeks, Mitchell and his superiors would discover they had messed with the wrong family. What they didn't know was that David Thornton had spent 20 years building an empire through ruthless strategy and unlimited resources. And now, for the first time in his life, he had a motivation that went far beyond profit. As Destiny fell asleep in Grace's arms that night, haunted by Mitchell's screams, David prepared for a war that would prove that sometimes the oppressors choose the wrong victims. And when that happens, revenge comes with surgical precision and infinite resources. Sometimes people like Mitchell forget that in a world where money is power, there are people with enough power to rewrite all the rules of the game. What he would soon discover was that he had poked not just a vulnerable family, but a sleeping lion with 200 million reasons to wake up. The next morning, David woke up with a calmness he hadn't felt in years. As he drank his coffee in his penthouse, he didn't think about financial reports or the day's meetings. His mind was focused on something much more important, completely destroying the lives of people who profited from the suffering of children. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Victoria Chen arrived at David's office, carrying 3 thick folders. We got much more than we expected, she said, spreading documents across the table. Mitchell isn't just corrupt, he's stupid. He left digital footprints everywhere. Marcus Rodriguez entered shortly after, carrying professional recording equipment. The cameras we installed captured Mitchell making explicit threats against at least 8 different families, but the best is yet to come. David leaned back in his chair. Go on. Mitchell has a WhatsApp group with other officers where they literally bet on how many families they can clean up each week. We have screenshots of everything. Victoria laughed coldly. They call the children premium products because wealthy families pay more for small babies. Destiny and Malik were next on the list. David felt something cold run up his spine. This wasn't just about illegal evictions. It was about institutionalized kidnapping. How much evidence do we have? Enough to take down the entire department, Marcus replied. But you said you wanted something more personal. Exactly. Mitchell is going to learn that there are consequences for threatening my family. While David planned Mitchell's downfall, the officer continued his routine of terror. That afternoon, he showed up at the overpass, accompanied by a corrupt social worker David didn't even know existed. Mrs. Grace, the woman said with a fake smile. I'm Sarah Williams from Child Protective Services. We've received reports of parental neglect. Grace hugged Malik tighter, terror evident in her eyes. My children are well cared for. Sleeping in the open isn't caring. Mitchell interrupted sadistically. Children need stable homes, not mothers who can't even pay rent. Destiny, who had been playing nearby, ran to her. Mother. Mommy, are they going to take us away? Sarah Williams crouched down with a rehearsed smile. Honey, we only want what's best for you and your little brother. There are wonderful families waiting to give you the love and stability you deserve. I have love and stability. Destiny replied with courage that broke Grace's heart. I have Mommy and Malik and Mr. David. Mitchell laughed cruelly. That rich man who shows up here, he'll get tired of you soon, just like he always does. Men like him don't really care about people like you. What Mitchell didn't know was that every word was being recorded in high definition by the cameras David had installed. More importantly, he had just made the fatal mistake of completely underestimating his true opponent. That night, David received the day's recordings. He watched Mitchell mock Destiny, threaten Grace, talk about premium products as if they were merchandise. For the first time in years, David felt something his business competitors knew well: cold, calculated rage. Victoria, he called at 11 o'clock that night. I want you to file a federal complaint first thing in the morning. Human trafficking, corruption, civil rights violations, everything. What about the family? Mitchell might try something desperate when he realizes he's under investigation. David smiled, but there was something dangerous about that smile. The family will be safe because tomorrow they're moving into my house. David, are you sure? This could complicate the case. I'm not asking for permission, Victoria. I'm informing you of my decision. The next morning, David arrived at the overpass with 2 lawyers, a moving truck, and temporary guardianship papers already prepared. Grace looked at him in confusion when he explained the situation. Mr. David, we can't accept this. It's too much. Grace, David interrupted gently. In 48 hours, Mitchell will find out that he messed with the wrong family. When that happens, you need to be somewhere safe. Destiny tugged at his sleeve. Mr. David, will you really protect us from the bad man? David crouched down to her height. Destiny, do you trust me? Yes. Then, believe me when I say that the bad man will never bother you again or any other family. Grace saw something in David's eyes that reassured her and worried her. At the same time, there was determination there, but also something darker, something people like Mitchell would never expect to find in a sentimental entrepreneur. As the family gathered their few belongings, David received a message from Marcus. Mitchell just posted in the group that he got 2 more products marked for collection. He really thinks he's won. David typed a quick reply. Let him think that tomorrow he'll learn the difference between bullying defenseless families and taking on someone with unlimited resources and federal lawyers. For a moment, as he carried Malik to the car, David thought about how strange it was that his life had changed so completely because of a little girl asking for milk in the middle of the night. But looking at Destiny holding Grace's hand, he knew he would do it all over again. What Mitchell didn't understand was that he had just turned a successful businessman into something much more dangerous. A protective father with $200 million and absolutely no limits when it came to defending his family. 48 hours later, Officer Mitchell woke up believing it would be just another routine day of cleaning up the streets. He had no idea he was about to experience the last day of his career and possibly his freedom. At 8 o'clock in the morning, he received an urgent call from Captain Morrison. Mitchell, I need you to come to the station immediately. We have a delicate situation. When he arrived, he found Morrison looking grim. 3 internal affairs officers, 2 federal agents, and to his utter bewilderment, Victoria Chun, the most feared civil rights lawyer in the city. Officer Mitchell, said the captain, do you know Dr. Chin? By reputation? Mitchell replied, trying to keep his voice steady, but already feeling cold sweat on his back. Victoria activated a tablet and turned the screen toward him. Do you recognize these images? Mitchell's blood ran cold. It was him in high definition pouring ice water on Grace's belongings, threatening to separate the children, using intimidating language against a defenseless family. The recordings had crystal clear audio of every cruel word he had uttered. Where did you get this? His voice came out louder than he intended. Security cameras legally installed in a public area. Victoria smiled coldly. But that's just the appetizer. She slid to the next video. Mitchell watched in horror as his own voice confessed to other officers that he received extra bonuses for relocating undesirable elements. Conversations he thought were private recorded with professional quality. 52 families. Officer Mitchell. 52 families you terrorized and illegally evicted over the last 18 months. One of the federal agents leaned forward. Agent Thompson. FBI. We're investigating allegations of human trafficking, extortion, and systematic civil rights violations. Your name comes up on all of them. Mitchell felt his legs go weak. Human trafficking? I never, Victoria interrupted, playing audio from a phone conversation. Mitchell's unmistakable voice echoed through the room. I managed to get 2 more premium products for pickup. The girl is 6 years old, perfect for those rich families who want little babies. The boy is also usable. Premium products. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Is that what you call children, officer? Captain Morrison shook his head in disgust. 23 years of service, Mitchell. How did you get to this point? But Mitchell was barely listening. His mind was racing, trying to understand how everything had fallen apart so quickly. Then Victoria showed him the next piece of evidence. Screenshots from the WhatsApp group where he and other officers bet on how many families they could expel each week. But you can't clear 5 bums by Friday. Victoria read aloud. I won. I separated 2 kids yesterday. Double commission this month. A heavy silence filled the room. Mitchell saw his career, his retirement, his entire life evaporating before his eyes. Who's behind this? Agent Thompson asked. Because we know you didn't organize this operation alone. Mitchell hesitated, but Victoria played another recording, him talking about orders from above and the Greenfield Project. Greenfield Development Corporation. Victoria said. $16 million in fraudulent municipal contracts. You used psychological terror to drive families out. Then the company bought their land for next to nothing. Agent Thompson placed a tape recorder on the table. Officer Mitchell, you have the right to an attorney, but if you cooperate now, we may be able to work something out. That's when the door opened and David Thornton entered the room carrying a briefcase. Mitchell recognized him immediately, the sentimental businessman who visited the family under the overpass. Sorry I'm late, David said calmly. I was finishing up the last details of the investigation. Mitchell felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath his feet. You were documenting every crime you've committed, David confirmed. Opening the folder, including these recorded conversations with your superiors at Greenfield, he played audio from a meeting where company executives openly discussed how to use Mitchell and other police officers to clean up problem areas before land acquisitions. The important thing is that it looks legal. Greenfield CEO's voice echoed through the room. Mitchell knows how to pressure these families without leaving an official trail. Mitchell sank into his chair. This wasn't just police abuse. It was criminal conspiracy involving millions of dollars. Mr. Thornton, Agent Thompson said, what exact role did you play in this investigation? David smiled. But there was something dangerous about that smile. When I saw Officer Mitchell threaten a family I consider my own, I decided to use my resources to find out exactly who I was dealing with. Victoria added, Mr. Thornton funded a 6-month investigation that exposed a corruption ring worth $50 million in misappropriated public funds. Mitchell finally understood the magnitude of what had happened. He hadn't just intimidated a vulnerable family. He had picked the wrong family, one protected by someone with unlimited resources and absolute determination. Officer Mitchell, David said, approaching the table. Do you remember what you said to Destiny on her last day? That men like me get tired of people like her. Mitchell nodded weakly. You were right about one thing. I did get tired. Tired of seeing innocent children terrorized by people who were supposed to protect them. David placed more documents on the table. Offshore bank accounts, suspicious transfers, fraudulent contracts, 3 years of evidence proving that you and your Superiors turn child protection into a human trafficking pipeline. Captain Morrison stood up. Officer Mitchell, you are suspended immediately. You will be charged with extortion, human trafficking, corruption, and systematic violation of civil rights. Mitchell tried to speak, but could only whisper. How did you get all this? David leaned forward. You completely underestimated who you were fighting. You thought you were dealing with a defenseless family and a naive businessman. Victoria added, Mr. Thornton has $200 million, a team of 15 specialized lawyers, and private investigators in 3 states. You picked the wrong opponent. As Mitchell was led out of the room in handcuffs, he heard David say to Agent Thompson, Agent, I have more evidence on the other officers involved and how Greenfield used social housing funds to finance private projects. That afternoon, as news of the largest anti-corruption operation in city history dominated every channel, David was at home watching Destiny teach Malik to draw flowers in the garden. Mr. David, Destiny asked, will the bad man never bother anyone again? Never again, sweetheart. Neither him nor the people who made him do bad things. Grace approached, holding a cup of coffee. David, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me for protecting my family, he interrupted. Gently. Destiny looked up from her drawing. Are we really his family? David crouched down beside her. You're the only real family I've ever had. As the sun set over the city, David reflected on how a simple question, sir, I need milk for my little brother, had completely changed his life. Destiny had taught him that family isn't something you buy, it's something you choose. And when someone threatens that family, you discover that protection is priceless. Sometimes powerful people forget that there are even more powerful people watching. And when those people decide to act, justice doesn't just come as punishment. It comes as a complete transformation of reality. Mitchell thought he was going after a vulnerable family, but he was actually waking up a sleeping giant who would rewrite the rules of the game forever. 6 months later, David woke up to the sound of laughter coming from the garden. Through his window, he saw Destiny teaching Malik to walk on the lawn while Grace planted flowers she had chosen especially to match her daughter's drawings. Daddy David, Destiny shouted, running toward him when he appeared at the door. The word daddy still made his heart race every time he heard it. Grace smiled, wiping the dirt from her hands. She's insisted on calling you that since you signed the adoption papers. David crouched down to hug Destiny. And I insist that it's the most beautiful word I've ever heard. Officer Mitchell, meanwhile, had discovered that justice has a long memory and surgical precision. Sentenced to 15 years in prison for human trafficking and corruption, he spent his first months trying to understand how a sentimental businessman had completely destroyed his life in a matter of weeks. In the same prison where many of the families he had separated visited their children in foster homes, Mitchell learned that reputation is like crystal. Once broken, it can never be put back together. The same way, Greenfield Development Corporation had all its contracts canceled, lost $120 million in federal fines, and its executives discovered that trying to profit from human suffering can cost much more than money. It can cost freedom. Mr. David, Destiny said that afternoon as she helped prepare dinner, my teacher asked me what I want to be when I grow up. And what did you say? I said, I want to help other families like ours, families that people pretend don't exist. David stopped cutting vegetables and looked at the 6-year-old girl who had turned his life upside down. You know you can be anything you want, right? Yes, but I want to be just like you. Someone who uses his power to protect those who need it. Grace, who was listening from the table where she was feeding Malik, smiled. She's right, David. You taught us that family isn't about blood. It's about choosing to care for one another. That night, as he tucked Destiny into bed in her room filled with books and colorful drawings, David reflected on the irony of life. He had spent 45 years accumulating wealth, thinking it would make him happy, only to discover that true wealth came when a little girl asked him for milk for her little brother. Daddy David, Destiny whispered sleepily. Thank you for choosing us as your family. Thank you for teaching me what family really means, my princess. 6 months after the trial, David received a call that surprised him. It was from the mayor inviting him to create a municipal family protection program that would prevent other children from going through what Destiny had faced. I accept, he replied without hesitation. But I have one condition. What is it? I want Destiny to cut the ribbon at the opening. She taught me that protecting families isn't charity, it's responsibility. On the day of the Destiny Family Protection Center's grand opening, hundreds of people gathered to watch a 6-year-old girl cut the ribbon on a project that would change thousands of lives. David watched from the back, holding Malik on his lap while Grace held Destiny's free hand. Mommy, Destiny whispered to Grace before cutting the ribbon. Are we helping other families not go through what we went through? We are, my princess, and it's all because you had the courage to ask for help from someone who could make a difference. When the cameras caught David wiping tears from his eyes at that moment, everyone understood that this story wasn't about a millionaire saving a family. It was about a family saving a man who had everything except what really mattered. Mitchell, watching the news from prison, finally understood the lesson that cost him his freedom. When you choose to terrorize the defenseless, you sometimes find that they aren't as defenseless as they seem. David learned that true wealth isn't measured in millions of dollars, but in laughter in the backyard, heartfelt hugs, and the certainty that someone is running to you, shouting, "Daddy, when you come home," and Destiny. She learned that sometimes, when you have the courage to ask for help, you find not only what you needed, but much more than you ever dreamed of. The little girl who promised to pay for milk when she grew up ended up paying with something much more valuable. She taught a lost man that family is the only wealth that truly multiplies when shared. If this story of a child who transformed the life of a millionaire touched your heart, subscribe to the channel, because sometimes the greatest victories begin with the smallest gestures of courage, and the best families are the ones we choose to love.